What it do, cuckolds? It's your boy, the hater. It's Friday night. I'm outside. So that could mean two things and two things only. Number one, Hater Outdoors coming at you. And number two, Smackdown review. Now, the hater, one of the challenges that the hater has to consistently deal with is remaining consistent. Now, nobody is perfectly consistent, but the hater likes to think that I am consistent. Now, there's a problem with that because some people think that their consistency is the same as mine, right? So I'll say someone said once, the hater likes big wrestlers, but he doesn't like Drew McIntyre, which is kind of true because now Drew McIntyre, as far as I'm concerned, is a jobber. But, I did like him at some point, right? Meaning that different things happen, different evidence is introduced into the record, and therefore opinions change. And that is the theme of this episode of Smackdown Review, brought to you by your boy, the hater, right? So, I will begin by saying two things. Number one, the hater has said many times, and I think everyone understands at this point, that we have to look at SmackDown, Raw, pay-per-views, NXT, AEW in the context of the modern day, where things are never going to be as good as they were until they get that good again, if they ever do, right? So we have to grade this episode of SmackDown and every other episode of every other show based on the modern standard, right? In other words, I'm going to give this episode a solid 9 out of 10. I know what you're thinking. How is that possible? And I'll explain. But 9 out of 10 in the modern setting, right? If you compare this to like an episode of SmackDown where you'd have like Eddie Guerrero and RVD, it wouldn't even come close. But I will say this. This episode is a step in the right direction for a couple of reasons. Number one, I personally enjoyed nearly everything in this episode, right? Not everything, of course. And even the things that I did enjoy, there was plenty of unenjoyable nonsense within these segments. But overall, I was satisfied with this episode. So let's go through it segment by segment and get to the bottom of this, right? The show opens up, AJ Styles comes out, he's a face again. I don't really like this. I think AJ Styles is a much better heel, especially in this dynamic that we find ourselves in where there's no heels. But, they've decided to make him a face. Great. AJ Styles is great, irrespective of how he aligns himself. I personally think it'd be better for him to be a heel, but AJ Styles is obviously one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. AJ Styles is someone that the hater has always liked, and I get, right? Number one, AJ Styles was able to do things back in the day that he can still do, but that now a lot of people do, that nobody else could do, right? Like the spiral tap. It was him and Amazing Red that were like part of this new generation of like crazy high flyers that were then mimicked by a bunch of jobbers like Ricochet. Actually, Ricochet I like, but you know what I mean, right? So AJ Styles is amazing. He looks in great shape. He's like a legend already. And quite frankly, even though the match was a little bit weird, he wrestled tonight, which is a lot more than we can say about many other people, which brings me to point two. Like, the fact of the matter is that we still are where we were, right? Meaning that the wrestlers that we see are very carefully curated for us to be a concoction of jobbers. But where a jobber performs and where a jobber improves, the hater acknowledges it. I'm not going to sit here and continue to say, oh, we didn't see Roman, therefore the show sucked, right? I have now accepted that we're never going to see these wrestlers on TV. Like Cody Rhodes, I don't even think he was there. I did skip around a little bit and I watched part of this while I was driving, but I didn't see Cody Rhodes. You know what I mean? And quite frankly, if you count the wrestlers that wrestled today and the ones that wrestled on Monday, it's like none of these people are going to be in the pay-per-view, which I could understand makes the pay-per-view more compelling, but it also makes the pay-per-view more boring and therefore makes SmackDown and Raw meaningless. However, this SmackDown was pretty good. AJ comes out, he basically turns face and he says, I'm sorry, in so many words. It's kind of weird, but whatever. He's like, I've done things I'm not proud of. And it's like, what? Like, what made you change your mind? Anyways, whatever, right? Carmelo Hayes comes out and basically just talks him down. It was very strange. Carmelo Hayes, I thought he would be around the same size as AJ, but you can see there's a clear difference. AJ is just bigger. He's fuller, if you will, right? He's more muscular. It's hard to say he's more athletic at this juncture than Hayes, but he definitely was when he was in his prime, and right now they're comparable. But I will say this, Carmelo Hayes has moved up in the eyes of the hater in recent weeks because he shows up to work. And this is what we have to do now. We have to give credit for people for doing basic shit, like showing up to work. And once again, Carmelo showed up to work. LA Knight came out, and even though LA Knight didn't wrestle, he participated in a pretty good segment here, right? Basically, Carmelo says, I don't want to wrestle you. LA Knight comes out, and basically he says, if Carmelo wins, that LA Knight is going to petition basically to have Carmelo get a title shot at the U.S. title. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And that was pretty nice, you know? So they have the match, and the entire match is like, there's no need to talk about it. Basically, the match culminates with AJ Styles hurting his leg, right? And as a result, AJ can no longer compete, so he loses his return match, but Carmelo gets a huge rub by winning by default, and therefore being primed to be the #1 contender for the U.S. title. After the match ends, LA Knight comes, hits the BFT on him. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And LA Knight cut a pretty decent promo as well. But so did AJ and so did Carmelo. You know what I mean? We have to give some props where props are due. Carmelo Hayes is a great wrestler. You know what I mean? Like I've said many times, he is plagued by only one handicap, and that is the fact that he is too small. Because otherwise, he has all the attributes that are required to be a great wrestler. And he needs a better finisher. But that's not here nor there. He can take one of his regular moves, which are finisher caliber moves, and make it his new finisher. But Carmelo Hayes has all the attributes. He's a good-looking guy. He's young, I think, relatively speaking, right? He's very athletic. He's excellent in the ring. He never botches anything. He has a certain level of charisma. I mean, he's not Shawn Michaels, obviously, but, you know, for the present day, he definitely stands out. So I really enjoyed this entire segment for what it was. You know what I mean? Now, it doesn't have to be like anything amazing, but I did enjoy it, you know? And that's all I can ask from any segment of any TV show, let alone wrestling, right? So it is what it is, right? Next up, we have Michin versus Chelsea Green. And just from this match alone, my respect for Michin went up significantly, as well as for Chelsea Green. The match had several really good spots that I enjoyed. There were two in particular. Number one, Michin puts the trash can spot, puts it on Chelsea Green, and then does a senton. Now this is brutal, right? Because she basically squishes Chelsea Green. And because Chelsea Green cannot anticipate her falling, and likewise, because Michin does not know what part of Chelsea Green she's hitting, this is gonna hurt, right? And this was just brutal, and I really enjoyed it as a move. I don't think they should do it because I think it's a little too risky, but it was well done. There was a part in the match where Piper Niven comes out. This was really dumb. You know, then she basically plays the role of Braun Strowman and any other big person that ever wrestled, where she has to be like a retard. She basically goes and does a cannonball and just, you know, Michin just dodges and she just hits the side of the dumpster. It was really stupid and really dumb. She also came dressed like the fucking like Michelin Man, you know what I mean? But wearing a cowboy hat. It was very stupid. But the best part, and I couldn't believe they did the spot because I thought it was a brilliant spot. Michin sets up a table on top of the dumpster, right? And then ultimately the match ends with Michin doing basically a super bomb, right? Either from the apron or from the edge of the dumpster. It wasn't clear. She just jumps and power bombs Chelsea through this table. The table breaks. She closes the lid. And then to make matters even more entertaining, Chelsea Green then comes out covered in garbage, right? And then later on, she was walking around covered in garbage. That part doesn't matter, but the match was excellent for what it was, right? Number one, hardcore matches are always more entertaining than non-hardcore matches because wrestling is not a sport and nobody should care about the moves that are being done unless it's really, really good, right? And these girls don't have the capacity to do it really, really good. But as far as I'm concerned, they've entertained me more in this match than Bianca Belair has entertained me in her entire career. You know, as a matter of fact, it's getting to the point now where the likes of Bianca Belair, Becky Lynch, fucking Bayley, Sasha Banks, these girls are complete shit. Charlotte, don't even get me started on Charlotte because this broad comes back, has 2 matches, then she's gone for 9 months. And then we have to wait for her other return. Like she's like fucking John Cena. She's not, you know? But the facts are what the facts are, and the reality is what the reality is. And that is that this match was excellent, and the spots were perfect. I really enjoyed it. You know, considering that Michin is willing to do these things, as is Chelsea Green, whereas Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill act like they're 2 John Cenas when they're not. Nobody gives a shit about these girls. All they do now is come out and talk to people backstage. It's fucking embarrassing at this point, right? Bianca Belair is boring as shit. She does, in my opinion, she's never drawn a dime in her entire career. Now, it's possible that she has. Maybe she's sold some merch, but nobody really cares either way because she's not entertaining. And that's fundamentally what it comes down to, right? She's not fun in the ring. She doesn't do anything interesting. She's not charismatic. She doesn't do anything. Whereas Michin also lacks several of the qualities that I just described. But at the very end of the day, she comes to work and does her job, right? And she has hardcore matches on free TV, which I appreciate. So Michin, moves up the power rankings as well. The Hateful Eight thing, I'm going to do it once a month, I've decided. So, look out for these people in the future, right? Overall, this was just a very good segment. Then we have Bayley coming out, and she just has her mandatory segment with Nia Jax. Neither of these two are ever going to wrestle on free TV at this point because the standard is so low. Like, in order to get away from wrestling on free TV, you basically have to be I would say a mid-carder, like even almost a lower mid-carder, right? Because the only people that wrestle are lower mid-carders. You know what I mean? And occasionally, like every episode, you'll get like one match with like Kevin Owens or something, who he is like a mid-carder, not a lower mid-carder. But generally speaking, it's going to be like Grayson Waller, Austin Theory, people that like are basically like one step away from being fired. You know what I mean? And these people are going to be the ones that entertain us. So I didn't like that. Speaking of two jobbers of this category, Naomi and Tiffany Stratton are going to have a match. Earlier on, also, it is revealed by, by Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill that Naomi is also going to be one of the hosts of Bad Blood. But we already knew this because someone else, like Tiffany Stratton or somebody else, maybe Nia Jax, brought this up last week. So it's not like it wasn't a surprise at all. And honestly, nobody gives a flying fuck. And basically all they do is they come on, they're like, we're going to go and turn up tonight. And then they start dancing, right? They all look like goofs because none of them are cool. You know what I mean? Like Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, and Naomi are not like cool people. They're dorks. They're like jocks who probably were nerds as well, right? And then Bayley comes out. Now, granted, she is dorkier than them. And she starts dancing next to them. And then Bianca Belair does this face like, you're not cool enough to dance with us. And it's like, first of all, while that may be true, it's not like Bianca Belair is like the epitome of cool. This is a girl who thinks that it's cool to have like a 6-foot long ponytail that's fake taped to her head. That's not cool. That's weird. But anyways, I digress, right? It was just part of this, like, Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair are presented as these, like, almost like bullies, but their faces. It's very weird. Like, every time someone else appears on screen with them, they make these faces like, like, what are you doing here? Like, aren't you weird? And it's like, bro, like, you're all fucking weird. Like, none of you are cool. Like, if, like, Lita and Trish Stratus are cool people, you can just tell. But anyways, I digress. That's not here nor there. The point is, next, we have Tiffany Stratton versus Naomi. Obviously, I don't give a shit about this. This was not a high point of any capacity. And quite frankly, it's the same thing again and again. The entire storyline here is when will Tiffany Stratton cash in the Money in the Bank? And furthermore, one of the elements of the Money in the Bank, conceptually at least, is that for some reason, when someone wins the Money in the Bank, they have to be buried beyond belief. And then they have to win their Money in the Bank match most often, right? And then after they win it, you're like, oh, wow, now all of a sudden they're legit. I don't know why, right? There are exceptions, but think about how bad this has gone for the likes of people like Austin Theory, who he didn't have a failed cash-in, but he basically did because he didn't go after the world title, or Baron Corbin, right? These are people that failed their cash-in, and now they're like, the fact that they're employed is just baffling to me, But whatever, right? This match was what it was. I do got to give props to these girls for showing up to work at least. Naomi's been like wrestling every week, so I give props to that. Then after, we had, the main event, the tag team ladder match. And this is something that I do want to talk about a little bit. There are a few people, right, that are carrying SmackDown and Raw. So I'll put it forward like this. In my opinion, Chad Gable is someone that's carrying Raw, right? He's always there. He's always doing something on TV every week, basically, right? And then on SmackDown, at this point, on SmackDown, it changes, right? Sometimes it's like Grayson Waller and Austin Theory. But now, for the time being, it has been the people in this match, specifically the Street Profits, right? I'm not saying that I think Montez Ford should be a star. I don't think he should be a star because I don't think he has star qualities. However, right, there is not much more that this guy can do to get noticed. I mean, at a certain point, it's like, what do you want him to just fucking kill himself on TV? Like, it's weird that the fans just aren't really that behind him, right? And I understand this is a very, very high bar, right? There's some wrestlers that the fans just really get behind. A great example would be Jeff Hardy, right? Jeff Hardy was a tag team nobody, right? But he was just too popular to ignore, so he got a world title push. A smaller level example would be Kofi Kingston during Kofi Mania, right? Which was just like, transitory. Jeff Hardy's always been like massively over. But that's something that you cannot ignore. And I'm afraid that in order for Montez Ford to reach any kind of heights, he needs to get over to the level of Kofi Kingston, Daniel Bryan, and Jeff Hardy, right? Or CM Punk, which is easier said than done. Very few people have the capacity to do that, and quite frankly, I don't think Montez does. But with a little bit of good booking, it could happen. Now, In the match, they had a ladder match. It was them, DIY, and the Bloodline, right? In the ladder match was pretty good, right? Ladder matches are always fun. So here's a few highlights of the ladder match that I personally enjoyed, and some negatives about them. Number one, the ultimate highlight is you would obviously expect Jacob Fatu to win the match for them. Not just interfere, but basically like destroy everybody and then grab one of these two jobbers and like kind of like, you know, electric chair them, right? While climbing the ladder so they can get to the top. This didn't happen, which was good. Number one. Number two, Montez Ford does this leapfrog over a ladder to do the blockbuster. Granted, he messed this up. He failed. He couldn't get it done, right? He ruined the spot. However, if there's ever been a moment for A for effort, this was it. Because this was an incredibly challenging and very unique spot, and he almost pulled it off. And even the fact that he didn't pull it off was covered pretty well by just the extreme nature of the spot, right? So he misses, but it's like, even if you touch the guy a little bit, jumping from, you know, that level, from that distance, it's gonna hurt, right? So that was pretty cool. And then, near the end of the match, finally, the logical thing happens, and that is that DIY and Street Profits, which are face teams, these guys decide to gang up on the Bloodline, right? This should have been the entire story of the match, and in some ways it was, right? Because that's kind of the idea. It's like they're united, they should be united, to defeat the Bloodline who has been making their lives a living hell. And they do. And this was really well done too, but it wasn't followed through on, right? Basically, DIY sets up a table and they put Tama Tonga on the table. Or is it Camacho? They put Camacho on the table, right? And Montez Ford does a frog splash from the heavens, from the turnbuckle to the outside onto a table. And he's not a pussy, you know? Montez Ford did it full blown. Like, he didn't care if he got hurt, right? And I was also impressed by that very much. I really like Montez Ford and the effort he puts into the things that he does, right? He clearly wants to be better and bigger than he is, but I don't think it's in the cards for him for reasons that I've mentioned in other videos. Nevertheless, the match continues. There's a part where like DIY and Angelo Dawkins do like basically a shield power bomb onto Tama Tonga onto the announce table. Now, at this point, the Bloodline has been taken out of business, right? So they start wrestling each other. And then they go to the ring, they both climb the ladder, all four of them, I should say, climb the ladder, and like two of them, Dawkins and Ciampa, kind of do like essentially a Russian leg sweep off of the ladder onto another ladder that's been hoisted in the corner for no reason whatsoever, right? That was a little bit weird. Like this idea that these like ladders ex machina, right? Like Chekhov's ladder, if you will. They just put these ladders in situations where it's like, you know, this is going to be used in a way that it just shouldn't be there. But nevertheless, the spot was good. They go through the ladder. Meanwhile, Tonga Loa, also known as Camacho, pretty much no-sells the frog splash, which in my opinion should have taken him out of the match completely. But he gets up and he just tips the ladder over, causing Gargano and Montez Ford to fall through the other ladder. He starts climbing very slowly. Now, credit to him. The climb was an arduous one, and he sold it well, right? And because he's a bumbling idiot, it's believable that this guy cannot climb the ladder fast enough, so I thought it fit in really well. Needless to say, what's his face? Tama Tonga, you know, he comes in and he's holding the ladder, right? Which both served a kayfabe reason, like he's also back in the game, but also it served a very important, you know, pragmatic reason, right? Because the ladder is weird, and basically the titles were too high. So Camacho had to step on the top part of the ladder, right? Which you're never supposed to step on, right? But he had to do it because it was either that or not win the match. So he did it, and I give him props for that. That's easier said than done. And then he got the titles and he was holding onto the rope where the titles are attached. And it's like, I was like, oh shit, this guy might fall at any moment. If he falls because it's not that big of a fall. Like, he can just like get up and it is what it is. But you don't want him to like fall because that looks stupid, right? But eventually he was able to like kind of gather his footing and go down the ladder normally, right? Now, with all that being said, then after this, Solo Sikoa, who didn't grace us with a match, obviously, and Jacob Fatu, who also didn't grace us with a match, these guys come out and they hug it out. Jacob Fatu is just being an idiot. He's just saying people's names. He's like, Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa. Like, he's just saying people's names. Like, I don't know what the point of Jacob Fatu is. Like, he's just stupid at this point. But anyways, the match was excellent. For what it was excellent. There were a lot of spots, And it's almost like, just put this match on pay-per-view, you know what I mean? This match deserves to be on pay-per-view because it was a big deal match, and it has, like, the tag team champions. But they decided not to. It is what it is. You know, like, the show then closes with Michael Cole talking about, you know, the upcoming pay-per-view tomorrow, right? And there's two things that I want to mention. Number one, at the very end, you know how like when a WWE show ends, they put that little graphic thing like at the bottom left corner, usually, sometimes at the bottom right corner, where it says like WWE, like property WWE, trademark, you know, like, you know, no reproduction, blah, blah, blah. They did that like usual. Then in the middle it said executive producers, some guy whose name I don't remember right now, and Paul Levesque. And it's like, enough of this shit. Paul Levesque has to throw himself everywhere. This guy's fucking annoying. You never saw in the Attitude Era produced by Vince McMahon. No, you just like knew that. And Vince McMahon didn't want that to be part of it because it takes away from the show. Oh, it's produced? Oh, so it's fake? Now I get it, everyone knows wrestling's fake. But yeah, at least try. You know, like Triple H's ego should be to the point where he doesn't need to do this. But it is what it is. That's the first part that I didn't like. The second part that I didn't like, well, actually the second part I'm neutral on. But basically, Michael Cole explains to us what the match is going to be. It's going to be the Samoan Werewolf, Jacob Fatu, and the Tribal Chief now, Solo Sikoa, versus Cucky Rhodes and Roman Reigns, right? We already knew that. But the way that Michael Cole basically says it is that, oh, it's Roman Reigns' first match since WrestleMania, and he will team up with his arch rival, which tells you all you need to know. The focus of this match is Roman Reigns. It has nothing to do with Cucky Rhodes. It has nothing to do with Solo Sikoa. It has nothing to do with Jacob Fatu. Roman Reigns is the main event, right? Unless the main event is the Hell in a Cell, which I honestly think it should be, because the Hell in a Cell just needs to be the main event because it's the fucking Hell in a Cell. Just like the Royal Rumble needs to be the main event of the Royal Rumble. I don't like when they put it in like first. You know, and the main event is like some jobber match with Cody, you know? No, like certain things are the way they are, right? Like if Bad Blood is going to replace Hell in a Cell, which hopefully it does, so we don't have to be forced to put Hell in a Cell in there, right? If Bad Blood's going to do that, then the attraction of Bad Blood is the Hell in a Cell match historically. So that's how it should be. Just like in Elimination Chamber, the final match should be the Elimination Chamber, right? Even if it's for the number one contendership. The attraction is the pay-per-view is called the Elimination Chamber. I feel this way about every gimmick pay-per-view. But nevertheless, that's neither here nor there. The idea is that no matter how you want to cut it, right? No matter how people want to spin this shit, the fact of the matter is we all know that the real draw of this pay-per-view, the real draw of this feud is just Roman Reigns. Everything else is, as we would say in the law, fluffery, right? It's fluffery. The fact that Roman Reigns is going to be beating Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa is immaterial. It could have been like him versus the Awesome Truth, and it would have had the same effect, right? The fact that Cody Rhodes is his partner, and that there's this like animosity between them, that's completely irrelevant. Nobody gives a shit about that, right? Nobody cares about Cody Rhodes in this match. Roman Reigns is gonna come out last in entrance themes, and he's probably gonna get the pin, or he's gonna like have the final say in one way or another, right? Roman Reigns is the clear star of this feud. He's the clear star of this show, and he's the clear star of this company. So that's something that, like, it's a little bit heartbreaking, not for me because I don't give a shit, but for Cody Rhodes, right? Where it's like, oh, yeah, you're the champion, but it doesn't matter if you're the champion because Roman Reigns was not the star because he was the champion. He was the champion because he was the star. You understand? And Cody Rhodes is neither a star, nor should he be a champion. So with all that being said, I am looking forward tomorrow to the pay-per-view. For no particular reason. You know, it's not like there's any match that I want to see. It's a pay-per-view with 5 matches. Again, I don't understand this logic. Like, go back to having like 8-match pay-per-views. Like, make it a little bit longer. But, I mean, I guess they can't make it longer because it's already long as shit. And, you know, they can only have 5 matches because there has to be room for those commercials. Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins have to be eating a burger from Carl's Jr. and Hardee's, right? R-Truth has to be playing with an action figure or something. They have to hawk their shit merchandise, and wrestling comes second nature. Back in the day, the best part of pay-per-views, the absolute best thing about pay-per-views, other than the fact that they were awesome because they had awesome matches and culminations of feuds, neither of which are happening today. We don't have awesome matches, and we don't have culminations of feuds. The feuds are going to continue irrespective of what happens. Like, you think if Damian Priest beats Finn Balor or vice versa, that it's over? Absolutely not. You know what I'm saying? They're going to keep doing this for months. So there's that. But the best thing, in my opinion, for pay-per-views back in the day, And I almost wish like we'd go back to the pay-per-view model. Now, granted, I wouldn't order every pay-per-view, but some of them I would. Like, of course, I'm always going to order and watch Royal Rumble and WrestleMania and SummerSlam. And, you know, if they turn into a pay-per-view again, King of the Ring, Elimination Chamber, I'm going to watch these, right? But the best part of the pay-per-views was that you knew that you're going to be paying your $29.99 back in the 90s and early 2000s. And the show starts, you see that little graphic that says, don't tape this basically and you know, sell it. And then, you know, you see the graphics that open up every show. And then maybe you have to tolerate like Aretha Franklin singing, you know, who's obviously an excellent singer, but I don't give a shit about the national anthem. I'm ready to watch wrestling, right? And that's it. Then Michael Cole welcomes you to the pay-per-view, or JR, if you're lucky enough to be watching when JR was in his prime, right? Which I still think he is in his prime. He just doesn't give a shit. But basically, you know, and that's it. Then the entrance music hits, and it's just wrestling and promos for the next 3.5 hours. You know, no commercials. Maybe, like at some point they'd be like, here's like the lugs, you know, the lugs like kick of the week, and they'll show like some segment that they're gonna talk about next, right? But that's about it. Everything else was just show, right? It was just entertainment. Now, you have to watch, first there's the pre-show, which is a complete waste of everybody's time. Then you have to watch the show. It starts up, it opens up, there's like 100 video packages that are too long. And then you have 15 commercials before, 50 commercials, you know, after. You have commercials within commercials. It's just absurd. Like the fact that they have commercials on premium live events is absurd. That's why they don't call them pay-per-views anymore, because number one, you're not paying for them. And two, they don't follow the pay-per-view format. They follow the commercial format. It's just another event, right? So with all that being said, you know, it would be better if we had like a premium live event that had like 8 matches but fewer commercials, but WWE has to make its money. You know what I mean? The fans are still buying the tickets because they're dumb fucks. So there you have it. With that being said, Cooks, this has been your Smackdown review up in this bitch.